Everyone, welcome. David Phelps here, and I'll introduce my guest in just a moment. Today, we are here just to talk a little more about the book that's coming out pre-launch right now, February 23rd of this year. What's Your Next? The Blueprint to Create Your Freedom Lifestyle. This is a book about redefining the traditional trajectory, the go to school, get into a specialized degree, career path, and try to follow that all the way through to, your retirement day. There's too much change going on in the marketplace today, and too many entrepreneurs, I believe, that really have that vision, that desire to create something that was theirs, their own business, their own career path, and we get confused. I say we. I've been there. I've been there where I was in those trenches and trying to figure out at some point, why am I here? Why am I doing this? Was this really what I signed up for? Today, I'm really excited to have. Are we on? Are we good?
Yeah, you disconnected for a second from me.
Okay, all right, good. I was going to say I'm bringing on my good friend Dr. Mike Michalowicz. I could confer upon you an honorary degree today. You definitely deserve it. But Mike Michalowicz, you can. The hardest thing about Mike is pronouncing and spelling his last name.
It's funny. I actually, my website. If you visit my website, in the top left corner, I have this little speaker symbol where you can just click on it and it starts bastardizing my name.
It's been done so many times before, I'm sure. Yeah.
Oh yeah. And particularly, in the high school and college days, that's when people really rip into you. So I have a lot of those up there too.
I bet you do. Well, you survived all that. You seem like you're pretty well with your mindset with all that today. But if you don't know Mike, you definitely want to go to his website. Now, his website's easier to find if you go to MikeMotorbike.com. And there it is right now. Casey, thanks for putting that there. It's a lot easier than his last name. Mike is a serial entrepreneur. He has written multiple books. I've got every one of them. Can we talk about just a piece of your new book today? Is that okay?
Sure.
Okay, Yeah. I'm gonna bring that up. I got to read the really short version of your bio because if I do the full version, Mike, we'd be here for the full live stream and we wouldn't get any further. So I'm gonna condense this a little bit. But Mike launched 3 multi-million-dollar companies before his 35th birthday. He was awarded the New Jersey Small Business Association's Young Entrepreneur of the Year when he was 26. Sold his first company to private equity and his second firm to a Fortune 500. He's the author of Fix This Next, Clockwork, Surge, The Toilet Paper Entrepreneur, The Pumpkin Plan, and Profit First, and we'll talk about his next one coming out. He's a former small business columnist for the Wall Street Journal. His books have been translated into, get this, over 20 different languages. Congratulations, sir. The amount of impact you have across the world is amazing. He's an active partner in multiple companies, including an American manufacturer, a business growth consultancy, an augmented reality tech firm, and a certification organization for accountants, bookkeepers, and business coaches. So Mike, I want to just, knowing who you are really the entrepreneur's entrepreneur. And, I've had time, fortunately, to spend time around you, even in small groups and just get to know you better, which is who I like to bring on because I know your background. I know you're the real deal. And I know we were talking a little bit before we jumped on today. I haven't written as many books as you have. I've done a few, and this book is really probably my biggest opus because it's a wider range. You've been doing books for a number of years. We were just talking about a little bit, it's work to do a book, yes. But why do you enjoy doing books? And I guess when you were growing up and going through your formal education process, did you think when you were younger that you'd be like writing books? Was that on your goal list?
Never anticipated being an author. Actually, my worst class was English, right? Literature. And I remember I'll never forget this. Mrs. Strucco gave me a D, the only D I've ever gotten in high school, and in English. And she says, you don't follow the protocol of literature. And I wonder if that's become an asset. I wonder if that was actually one of the greatest learning lessons, was to adhere to breaking protocol. So no, I didn't anticipate I'd be an author. But I had a defining moment in my life as an entrepreneur where I was full of my ego, thinking I was so great at entrepreneurship. And that's when I lost everything. I wiped myself out. And
what age were you, by the way?
I was 32. I had, as you shared, I built some companies. I sold some companies. They were in the tech space. Became a millionaire in my early 30s, self-made millionaire. And I was like, oh, I am so smart and such a genius. And I think I was 32. From 30 to 32, I blew all my money on just ego things, and lost everything while trying to run businesses behind the scenes that would, cover my new lifestyle. That became the great restart for me. I actually write about it in one of my books. I started my family very young. I had my first child when I was 23. I had all my children in my 20s. I had to face my daughter. She was 9 years old at the time, and tell her that I couldn't send her to horseback riding lessons because I didn't have the $25 to spend. I was literally broke. As I was saying this, and I was sobbing, it was a pinnacle moment. She ran to her bedroom. I thought she was running away to grab her piggy bank, and she came back to me. She goes, "Daddy, since you can no longer provide for us, I'll provide for our family." And I think about it, I get emotional. I felt like such a scum of the earth that I put my family in this position. And I endeavored to fix this permanently. And by the way, it wasn't like the next morning I woke up and said, I got this figured out. I started boozing. I went through depression. But I started to write down for myself all the things I didn't understand about entrepreneurship, which ended up being 99.9%. And I wrote down so much. I'm like, oh, this could become a book. And I pursued it. I started writing for the Wall Street Journal. I started to learn writing in my own voice and wrote my first book. And then my subsequent one, and became this was my lifetime endeavor. I'm an author, period. That's what I do. I write books for small business owners.
Yeah. I want to dig into that. By the way, Casey, grab any comments or questions, and folks that are watching, I want you to engage with us, engage with Mike. Type your comments in. Casey will grab those and toss them to us. Because I'd like to try to stump Mike today. I mean, let's really work hard to stump Mike. Let's make it happen. All right. Okay. So I think what you said is so apropos, because Mike, you work with so many entrepreneurs. You're constantly in their midst. You are one. I am one. Yeah. And the vision that we have as entrepreneurs is to be the boss, own our business, because that's going to give us freedom. That we're going to control our destiny, right? And yet, there's so many things we don't know. I mean, we get our formal education in various degrees. You got yours, I got mine, and we get some technical training, some certification, and we go off into the world. But pretty soon, those of us who want to have a business, I'm gonna have my business. I'm gonna start my business. We typically know nothing about the real world, right? It's all academic. It's all what's been taught from a professorial level. So we go into this business and we know nothing, and we get tripped up. We end up spinning all the plates, and after a while, whether you have a defining moment, you had one, I had one as well. I think a lot of people have those. I call it, just that come to Jesus, or really, really, really understand what your why is, and so it changes things. There's a lot of people that are listening today, or they're out there in the world, that are hardworking. It's not a lack of ambition. It's not a lack of perseverance, but it's a lack of knowledge of how to get from here to here. You cover so much of this in your various books. I mean, your books should be a library for the entrepreneur to look at. But what do you think it is that is the one of the, I know there's many, but what's the biggest fallacy that you believe that want to be entrepreneurs that are really having a business that's serving their lifestyle, not the other way around? What do you think is like the biggest fallacy?
I think the biggest fallacy, one of them is believing that the success of others is what we should replicate, to the compromise of what's integral to leaning into ourselves. Yeah. So, we're told fake it till you make it. Look at what the other people are doing and play in their space. But I think we take it to an extreme. Just because, I'll pick our name that many people would recognize, Anthony Robbins. Just because Anthony Robbins is wildly successful doing what he does, if I replicate that, I will fail at it. His model is a great model for him. But I'm not Anthony Robbins. I don't have the, pound on my chest, hey, it's time to rock and roll. Like his style, his energy, his ability to transfer that to other people is within his wheelhouse. It ain't mine. And therefore, if I try to clone his process and not make it my own. Now, I do believe in R&D, which is rip off and duplicate. Mm-hmm. I do believe if you see something that's working successfully for others, that you can integrate it into yourself, but it must be an amplification of yourself. Just as one final part to this, my website for an author is, I would argue, a unique website. It's different than most authors because I really just lean into who I am, to the point where I had other authors saying, I like that site so much, I want to do that. Who's your web designer? I'm like, here's my web designer. And they go to my web designer and say, just make a copy of Mike's website. And they will, and they do. And it falls flat. And I'm like, why isn't this working? Your website's so good. It's not working for me, even though it's the exact same website with just different pictures. And the reason is they're trying to take something that's working successfully for someone else, and then they have to modify who they are, which is impossible to change who we are. So there's this incongruency and it falls flat. So don't copy what's working for others. Take the elements of others that you can put in yourself, but always amplify who you are. Lean into yourself, and that's where the opportunity is.
You know, I had a similar experience when I was a decade ago when I was wanting to learn to be a better communicator.
Yeah.
Never had spoken really publicly to any great extent at all, and I went to some training, and the guy was kind of a Tony Robbins personality. So he was big on the stage, right? Big. He'd get up on his heels, and then of course when he was selling, it was and back to the back of the room. You know, the old sales protocol, right?
Yeah.
And so he's teaching us in a small group how to do that, and I'm trying to do this, and it's just so painful because that is not me,
right?
You know? So I actually tried that when I was at a conference where they actually let me speak, and it was just awful. I mean, I almost didn't want to go back and do it again because I was just so embarrassed by why am I trying to do this? You know, so you're right. Trying to follow the lead or other people's agenda. This is the way it has to be. Social media is so bad about that today too, by the way. Everybody's out there painting the story of look at me, I'm so great, and we get this imposter syndrome. Well, I'm not adequate. I'm not enough. You know, and it's like, you know. That's why I think you have to, you know, I've learned so much, and, you know, from being around people like you inside circles where I've been the benefactor of being around a lot of different people. And I never name any names, but there are certainly people we know that extol their virtues out there. But when you really sit down to dinner with them and they really start talking about their life, there's a bunch of stuff that's going on that is really not pretty at all.
I was spending time pre-COVID with a name that is as big as Anthony Robbins at an event. I was not the only person there. This was not one-on-one. And I saw that person do something to perpetuate an image, but was not what they were. So they were doing something at the event, and nothing salacious or anything, but they were just participating in an activity. And then a photographer came around, and this person's like, oh, we got to stop and basically stage this scene to look a certain way so that my community, so it's consistent with what my community's hearing. And again, it was nothing salacious, but what I became aware of was like, wow, this person has to be has to put on two faces, the public persona and the reality. Now, as a juxtaposition to that, I just spent a couple of days interviewing a guy named Jeff Walker. You may know him, he's like a big info marketer guy. And so the info marketing, when it really started to take off in the early days, there was a smarm factor for certain info marketers. You know, they get the rented private jet behind them, right, you know, trying to imply it's their jet. They have the Bentley that they borrowed from the lot on a test drive for a couple of hours to try to get pictures. Well, I interviewed Jeff Walker, and one thing that just landed with me as I'm interviewing him, the subject of cars came up. He's like, oh yeah, I have my Ford 350. I'm like, oh, you have the new Ford 350? He goes, no, it's 13 years old. That's my favorite truck, and I've stuck with it. He's this mountain guy from Colorado who lives in this house he bought 25 years ago. He's a millionaire many times over, but he just lives within the confines of his contentment, and he puts it out there. It's not this smarmy guy. You'll never see Jeff Walker in his private jet video, and hey, you can be like me. Right. It was so authentic. And the fascinating thing is, by leaning into who he was, he's one of the preeminent names, and I assume fiscally is achieving the status of the elite performers in the info marketing space by leaning into the true self.
Yeah, no, that's so good. You know, something you said earlier about you know, going against the grain, being contrarian, not following the majority is so important, and that's really kind of the title of your next book. It's really a marketing book, but different is better. So that applies in so many ways, right? But again, the idea that we would take a different course than what everybody else says they're doing, or bigger is better. Or I got to scale this thing up, or you know, I want to hit that top line revenue on a bragging rights, and it's like, yeah, but what does that really mean? What does all that mean to you when you really go back and look at what you really want in your life? And are you familiar with her name is she's Australian palliative care nurse, 5 Regrets of the Dying.
Oh, yes, I heard.
You know
I read
so,
the article. I don't know the person, but I know.
Yeah,
the
I forget her name. I'll think of it. But anyway, you Google 5 regrets of the dying, and this palliative care nurse from Australia, she deals with patients in hospice. In the last weeks, maybe
Yes.
months of their life, right? And so she gets to have the conversations with them. She gets to know them, right? And she's talking about the men. I mean, sure she has conversations with women as well, and they're maybe a little bit different. But for the men, the 5 regrets, it was never about, I wish I had another business, or I wish I would have, added more multiples to scale it bigger. It was always, I wish I would have been happier. I wish I would have spent more time with the key people in my life. I wish I wouldn't have lived my life according to other people's agendas. And I think, sometimes it takes that wake-up call, that defining moment, that many of us have had, to really get that sense of, why am I doing this? And then we start looking at a different course. You did it, I've done it. It's like, you go inside. And then I think the next piece, which I'd like to come back to you, is this a solo journey, Mike? Is this something you could do by yourself, or?
Oh, we froze up again. I hope you can hear me. And I'm just going to go with what I heard your question going toward was, you asked if this is, okay, good. It desunk and it resunk.
Okay.
So in regards to the solo journey, at least for me, not at all. And, it's kind of, to me, it's like a band. I don't know if it's a good analogy because I know nothing about bands. I do aspire. I got my little guitar over there, but, I do, as a kid, aspired to be in a band. I recognize the front man of the band gets the recognition. So whatever your favorite band is, there's the singer who in most cases gets all the recognition, but the music is generated by the group. Well, I made a choice for my businesses as an author that I'm going to act as the front man here. I have a band, an 8 or 9 piece band now. It's actually the president of our company and I were just meeting just a few minutes ago before I came in here. Collectively, without them, I would never be able to make the music I make. I just make, I'm just singing, but they're playing the instruments. So we need a collective group. I believe in that vehemently. And it really is about matching up with different talent. I'm not good at the organizational component. I'm a great cheerleader and I can be a good spokesperson, but I'm not good organizationally. And so that's why we have team members here. I'm not good at the social media front. Don't really desire that, but my other team members do. And that's how we excel. It was interesting as I was researching Different is Better. You referred to that book. That's a book I'm releasing. I actually finished the manuscript. It's with my publisher, but it's not going to come out until end of September. This is how these publishing juggernauts move. What I found was fascinating is the number one determinant of if a business gets noticed or not is not if we're better than the competition. And yet that's the leading factor. And if we could survey folks listening in live or recorded this and say, are you better than the competition? I strongly suspect, David, every hand should and will go up because we are better than the competition in some capacity. Then the question simply is, how's that serving you? And for most businesses is we're invisible. We're not noticed. So the factor of being better is not what gets the customer's attention. It's being different. Well, I interviewed a guy named Robert Stevens, the founder of Geek Squad. You probably recognize that brand, who actually started his computer company when I started my first computer company at the same time. The only thing is he started with a smaller budget in Minnesota. He had a few $100s, I had a few $1,000s, and he kicked my ass until Sunday. And so many of my contemporaries. And the reason isn't because he provided better computer services. He was the only one that had the courage to go in these geeky costumes with flood pants and a taped glasses, providing computer services. That was remarkable. That was noticeable. That was different. And I just want to challenge all of us is when you lean into who you are, you can also lean into your differentiation. If you really put out the extreme idiosyncrasies that you have, that's where you're going to win at the game of business, I think.
That is so true and so hard to do. Just an aside, along that line, I dressed up at one of the speaking conferences I did. This was some years ago.
Yeah.
I had a Captain America suit on, and then I had my doctor scrubs on over it with tearaway seams. So I looked like the doctor. I came out on stage, and at some point I ripped them off, and I'm Captain America on the side.
I love it.
Now this Captain America suit was a very generic suit. I'm relatively tall, so it didn't fit really well, right? So
right. I love it. I love it.
So anyway, to your point, doing something that will differentiate you. You've got to stand out. You've got to be different, and as you said, extol those things that make you unique. But the idiosyncrasies are that very thing, right? So be yourself, but push those out. Don't think, oh gosh, I'm not like everybody else. No, you don't want to be like everybody else.
You don't want to. Yeah, but it takes courage. It was Oscar Wilde who said, "Be yourself. Everyone else is already taken." Right. So the thing is, though, it takes courage. And so what I was finding my research is there is this compulsion to fit in, and it's part of our DNA, but it's also trained into us. Like, we are told to color in the lines. We are told to follow certain protocol to get an A rating versus an F. And if you fail to follow protocol, you are punished in some regard. And Maslow argues that the human hierarchy of needs, the 5 levels of needs. Belonging, I think, is the second or third level. I mean, it is mission critical that we are accepted in a community. So the risk we run by being different is rejection among our community. That is it is less painful to take a smack from a hammer on your finger than it is to be excommunicated from the people that you associate with. So wearing that Captain America's costume, that's a big risk. What if people make fun of me? What if they don't want to hang out with me anymore? And therefore, we will talk a big game. Oh, yeah, I'm different and I'll do whatever it takes. But when it's time to put the rubber on the road, we don't do it because of the fear of rejection. The irony is this: if we have the courage to be the next Robert Stevens and put those geek costumes on, or whatever our version is, there is another bigger community waiting to absorb us, saying, finally, someone's here. So you're not leaving a community, you're finding your community.
That exactly. So well said. So well said. You are going to attract, or you will attract the people that are unique and appreciate your uniqueness. The people who don't appreciate your uniqueness, probably not the people you want to spend a lot of time with, because what are they going to do? They're going to hold you back. I mean, the default mode for most people in this world, instead of trying to achieve more, become more, is to pull other people back down. And if you're around those kind of people, good luck, because it's like you're trying to climb up and they're all grabbing your ankles and just pulling you down, pulling you down, pulling you down. It's really hard to climb out of that. But yeah, so be different, so you will be attracted to the people that I think are better. We got a question here from Blaine. So he asked,
Blaine. I know Blaine, so I'm just Blaine.
Blaine's such an awesome guy. He's Chief Results Officer.
He's a wonderful man. He's
the guy that he just helps people get stuff done. I mean, just gets right down to it. Instead of, I talk a lot about, it's great to have ideas, but ideas without action or effort, they're no good. Blaine's the guy that actually turns those ideas and actually
gets shit done. Yeah.
At least testing something to see if it's an idea worth going forward with or not. I mean, you get to decide. But in the book, what's your next? Blaine's asking, well, how do you know if you pick the right next? And my premise here, Mike, just so you know, is that we always need to be evolving, right? I mean, you don't want to get in that specialized one career path, because again, things happen many things we can't control, some things we can control in life, but things happen. It's happened to you, happened to many people. So if you're not expanding your different freedom assets, investing in yourself, your business, which you write so well about, relationships, we just talked about that, your capital, owning the business of your finance, so that you're actually building a capital base that will replace your active income, so that, if you don't want to work or do certain kinds of things, you don't have to, finally legacy, but leaning into what your next should be. Tips for that. I'll throw out a couple, and then you can throw out a couple.
Yeah.
Blaine, it's a great question. I think number one is what Mike and I just got through talking about. You got to be around a tribe of people who are authentic around you, that don't have an agenda on you. So your inner. So we talk about your inner circles of influence. Your inner circle of 5. Then you may be in a mastermind group, but people that know you, appreciate you, but are going to tell you the truth. And so when you're trying to decide what to do, I use that analogy that in the middle of our world, our work, it's like being in the forest. We're in the forest, we can't see, but you need someone who can look from a 30,000 foot elevation, which is what, like, you get clarity. That's why we do mastermind groups, right, Mike? We have an idea. We go at the front of the room. Hey, I got this great idea. Well, if you got truthful people, some people will say, yeah, not bad, Mike, but have you thought about this? Or Mike, why are you doing that? And sometimes it hits us in the face like, Why didn't I see that? Well, you can't. You're blind. So I think finding your next plane is something you can certainly do some meditation on it solo. I agree. But I think also getting around people that you know, like, and trust can also help give you some direction that you can't see by yourself. So I'll leave that. Mike, what would you say?
So I'll add two components. One is having clear purpose. And this is, I think, is a lifelong experience. I have it on my wall here behind my light. You'll see it says eradicate entrepreneurial poverty. That's what I've defined for myself, why I exist. And what's great about that is it's a beacon for me. It's a question I constantly ask myself. Any endeavor I'm taking on, I say, is this moving me toward eradicating entrepreneurial poverty? Because that's my fuel. If I feel I'm doing that, I become relentless in my process. The other element, oops, I'm going to turn music on, turn it off. The other element is getting past the honeymoon phase. Anything new that I take on, it's exciting in the very beginning. But once I have to, put the work and effort into it, it's more exciting to abandon and start the next thing. And it becomes this shiny object syndrome, the SOS, right? You kind of start looping. So the thing is to stick with it long enough that the actual effort has to be made. And I'm not feeling the reward of just the idea. There is a stage in every project I've ever taken on where there's work without reward. It's just the effort, but I'm not seeing the reward. I'm past the excitement of the idea. Now I'm doing the work without reward. If I sustain through that phase, then I start seeing work with reward. I start seeing results. It's that component that I have to make sure I'm in, because if I see it through there, I know this is something I want to see through to the end. So that's it. Get past the honeymoon phase, because I can't think straight that phase. Get to the point where I feel the work and do I really like this? Then I know I'm onto something, and make sure it ties into purpose.
Purpose is so important. That, and also even within that purpose, within your scope of your focal point of who you're helping, how you want to help them. For you, it's entrepreneurs. For me, it's professional practice and other business owners in a different way. But I have to wake up every day, and it's like, what gives me energy? Now, not everything I do, Mike, and I'm sure same thing for you. Not everything we need to go do gives us energy. Some things suck energy. But my dental professionals will appreciate this. We all go to school to become these exquisite clinicians of the mouth, right? It's great. I mean, you serve people, you fix their mouth, you make them functional, all the things we can do, make their smile better. I mean, it's a great service, but it's a lot of inordinate technical detail. Yeah. Now, why wouldn't I have known that before I went to school? See, I could pass the tests, do the grades, but see, I never was a kid that sat down and did models. Some kids would sit down and build models, intricate models. That was never me. Probably should have been a test somewhere that said, "Hey, do you like to do models?" No, I can't stand it. So what it took me a lot of years to figure out, Mike, is that years of experience, I could do the diagnosis, the treatment planning, the orchestration to figure out the solution to even complex situations. I just didn't want to go do the work. Yeah. So let me be the planner, the visionary, and then set somebody else up, even sell the deal, right, to the patient. So I had to work through the world and get to it was tight. It didn't feel good. And once I was able to give myself permission to escape that, life changed forever for me. And it's just been, now it's like I get up every day. I don't care what day of the week it is. I'm on fire because I get to do fun stuff. I get to spend time with fun people. I get to help people I love to help. It's not this laborious, I got to go do this. And if I do this for enough years, someday I'll get to retirement. No, then I'll start living my life.
One thing I started doing, and actually kind of in the process, actually, as we speak, is I started implementing, I call them the 4-week vacations. I wrote about this in my book, Clockwork. But what the idea is that if we can remove ourselves from the business completely for 4 consecutive weeks, and the business continues to progress without us, we probably have a model that can live into perpetuity without us. So therefore, to trigger this, everyone should schedule at least 1 4 consecutive week vacation a year, not about the vacation as much as the business getting a vacation from us. Just so happens I'm on it now. I know we were coordinating this. I'm like, oh, I got to come in. But I'm back to heading home right after this. The thing is, when we get our business to not have dependency on us, a magical thing happens. It allows us, as the owner of the business, to reinsert ourselves in the capacity that we love to work. I had to, it's your point, like we have to do certain work because it's necessary. But if we continue to do that work because it's necessary for a long period of time, there is something wrong. I think we need to elevate our business to the point where it doesn't depend upon us. And that gives us the freedom to do what we want, which for me, it's writing books and being the spokesperson. But I'm not needed to operate my business anymore.
It's well said. Well said. Well, to me, to you, to other people that we love to help break that entrepreneurial hamster wheel. It's what's about you next, which to me is about freedom. It's about freedom. It's the evolution of the entrepreneur from beginning to that vision. And it's not a straight shot, Mike. We know but you've got to stay focused and keep clarity on what you really want. You can get there. I always tell people, don't give up. We've had massive disruption this past year. Use the disruption as an opportunity. I'd say use it as an opportunity to say, hey, what hasn't been working in my life? What can I change now? Because I kind of have to make some changes, right? You want to tag on to that?
Yeah. I mean, listen, change gets thrust upon us, right? It was funny. As I was writing Clockwork, I was interviewing people and stuff, and they're like, yeah, one day I'm going to get to this point where the business won't need me. And I'm like, the business may make this choice for you, or your life circumstances make this choice for you, that you get sick, or you're pregnant, or whatever the circumstances are, you may be removed. And this pandemic is one of the greatest examples. What's interesting is businesses can respond, I think, in multiple ways. And I saw it play out in this pandemic. When the pandemic hit, some people said, this is not something I want to deal with. I'm going to wait this out. Yeah. And sadly, those businesses went out of business. Other businesses said, well, I'm simply going to do what I've been doing harder and stronger. I'm going to hustle it out. Mm-hmm. And that doesn't necessarily work because the parameters around them changed. Look at restaurants. Restaurants that say, we're going to have better waiters. We're going to serve more efficiently. You can't go into a restaurant anymore. You've got to change the model. I think what the smart businesses did is they had the courage to say, does our model work anymore? There's a new environment around us. And that's courageous to ask because it's going to mandate reinvention. There's one restaurant in this area here. I thought it was genius. They said, obviously we can't serve in a restaurant anymore, and takeout and delivery is an obvious solution that many are doing. But to do delivery, you got one guy, it takes 45 minutes to deliver a food item. He comes back, and they teamed up with a food truck. And now this food truck is carrying hot meals into neighborhoods, and they have 5-minute deliveries saying, we're going to have this food truck just bang out all these different houses. You tell us the time you want it delivered. They reinvented the way the business operates. And I don't even consider it a restaurant anymore. It's more of a cooking center that's using this outbound food truck service. I think the courage to reinvent is the essence of what makes entrepreneurs perennially successful. A lot of businesses that have been around for 20 years, honestly, have repeated that first year over 20 times. Right. I think the real successes are the ones that are willing to challenge their established beliefs and reinvent.
So I'm going to take what you just said so well, and I'm going to make that the challenge for today's live stream challenge. And that is, what area of your life or your business should you be challenging those beliefs that you've had, doing it the way you've always been doing it because you've been successful up to a point? Why not use this opportunity where everything's disrupted right now, where no one's going to fault you by trying something new? Yeah. Including your team, your staff, including your clients or your patients. Look, there's so many reasons to make a change today that no one's going to fault you for it. What have you not had the courage to stand up and do? Take a few minutes and just make a list of brainstorm it, right? Just brainstorm it, put them down. What are some things? Don't leave anything out. Just put them down and then come back and maybe go to your team, go to your inner group of 5, your mastermind circle, whoever you have that can give you some accountancy, and run those by and get some input. But this is your opportunity. Don't let it go. Don't let it go. Mike Michalowicz, I appreciate your time so much. Thanks for feeding into our discussion today. Love you, man, and keep doing what you're doing. I can't wait for your next book to come out.
It was a pleasure being with you, brother. Be well, David.
Take care.